Okay, so this is Matthew here, and I'm here with Tremayne Tatem. And Tremayne is Trey is an entrepreneur as well as the director of academic partnerships at CapSource, and we've been working together for a while.
Wow, yeah.
But we're taking the opportunity now to kind of summarize a lot of the work. And let's just start off with the session that we just had. You had some big aha moments. So primarily, what did you gain from the session we just had, Trey?
One of the things that I gain the most is really like being aware, first thing, of being authentic to myself and knowing when I'm not authentic and being able to look at it square in the eyes and saying, hey, you're not being authentic to yourself. And that's where, you start to feel the struggle. So one of the aha moments was really like through the gamma breathing, really like getting in tune with that. And then in that led me to my next aha moment and start to show that like this knowledge, this feeling of a knowledge gap between where I'm at and then where I want to go. And through the gamma breathing as well, it created the space for me to not to see it as a gap, right? Just but to see it as like as I'm a whole and complete person, and out of that, everything will work its way out. You find that flow state.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. That's spectacular. So going back to, our the scope of our work overall, and let's hone in on like the last 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Because just to for the purpose of the case study video, we worked together last year, worked to the point of you getting a job, a position
Yeah.
that was something you're actually passionate about. And you had other opportunities on the table that were higher
Mm-hmm.
revenue potentially, but you knew it wasn't in your heart to pursue those. So we worked together in a coaching capacity to get you to this point of getting this really awesome opportunity. And now, fast forward 6 months, you literally began like the 1st of January with that
Mm-hmm.
position. So going into that space now, and maybe kind of even backtracking as a before and after, like before we actually started this avenue of performance coaching, Trey, how did you actually feel about the idea of performance coaching before we began our work together?
Well, the idea of performance coaching, like I would always think about like athletes. Athletes have coaches. I played, sports my entire life, and I've always had a coach. But I read an article or something that LeBron James spends $1 million on his self development, which include coaches from nutrition to fitness to basketball drills. Like he invested that much, and I was like, well, I don't have $1 million to invest in myself yet, but I want to start making those investments at the scale of where I'm at right now. So I knew that having a coach, and I think with like the pandemic and COVID last year, that kind of put that sealed the deal where like everybody had a chance to self-reflect. Everybody on the planet, and in investing in working with you last year was like one of the best investments because it didn't leave my mind to my own devices. Like there was someone to actually coach me to find my place of purpose.
Absolutely. And of course, specifically your place of purpose is in this now position with CapSource.
Yes, yes,
Amazing. Amazing.
yes.
Amazing. And just kind of intermediary question there. Do you feel like you would have been as successful in arriving at this position if you hadn't had some form of guidance along the way?
Well, I might have overlooked it because what the coaching allowed me to do, and I would say not only were you the coach, but the universe was the coach through the pandemic. Like it forced me to go within and realizing like I don't have much time. We all don't have much time. We have a small window of opportunity, so I don't want to spend too much time. Because prior to the coaching, I had a startup company, an agency. We were a startup development firm, and we were pretty much just doing any type of project that would come our way. And I remember the last I should say, proposal pitch that we did was with the educational technology company. Now, at the time, I was working in higher education. So, that's where my background was. I did that prior. I was always in this field of education, but education was never sexy to me. It wasn't sexy. But what the coaching allowed me to do is really like over time, it took some time. It took 4 to 5 months to get down to the point of like, wait, I have something to build on. I have 10 years of business development in higher education, selling into developing relationships, partnerships with higher education. And then I had 4 years working in higher education. And I always say this story, it took me 8 years to graduate from a 4-year degree. So I knew it was broken, because I knew it was broken. And the correlation is the work that I've been doing was all revolved around giving students real world experiences, learning by doing rather than learning by theory. And I was able to, through our coaching, I was able to tune into like, that's how I've always learned. That's why it took me so long, because I didn't want to sit and I wanted to do something. I was always entrepreneurial since I was 12. And the coaching allowed me to kind of like put all these pieces together that it probably would have took me so much. I would have never had that done by the end of the year last year, to start January 1st.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And one of the things we talk often about in our sessions is gaining clarity so that you can have a specific direction. And with a specific direction, then you can effectively execute. So, just to kind of summarize the point you made, it sounds like you had more of a laser focus in terms of where you actually needed to go to harness your skills and your ultimate passion.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't want to be redundant here, but just to briefly touch on it, like before our work together, you've always been a creative guy. You've always lived by your intuition, inspiration, but just speak really, really brief on this point, like before our work at all ever period, even going back a couple of years, what was it like for you in terms of the clarity, in terms of the direction, in terms of the execution?
I think I didn't have a clear direction. I would find myself in opportunities because there were just opportunities in front of me. And I always saw these opportunities as stepping stones into where I was supposed to be, but never settled in being, this is where I'm supposed to be. So it was more I was chasing things rather than allowing things.
That's a big distinction there. Yeah, I just want to emphasize that point, right? Because I think a lot of people get caught up in this idea of like they got to make something happen. So do you feel like, you're still putting in effort, you're still taking inspired action, but are the pieces to the puzzle more falling into place for you as a result of our work?
Yeah. So, so like the first 6 months of my new role, it was like there was a lot of inspired action, a lot of activity, but there was no revenue growth directly. But what I didn't realize what was happening now that I'm like literally at the 6-month mark is I remember hearing something is like when you make an intention to move into your purpose, you're going to get tested. And I see now that time, those 6 months was all character building months. So now I have, it was rough. It was rough and you question a lot, but the work still continues. Even though the work around you may not be the pieces of the puzzle may not be coming together the way you have formulated, but the internal work has to continue. And I'm starting to see now that the internal work is starting to catch up to the external world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and just again, for the purposes of this as like a case study, conversational interview, people get caught up in that fantasy, or they get caught up in insisting or assuming that it ought to be a certain way. And the fact is there is a struggle phase to this, right? That's part of the process. And life isn't necessarily meant to be like rainbows and unicorns in the way that some people fantasize. It's wonderful, it's joyful. But you say now, Trey, that you have a greater appreciation and passion for the challenge, for the struggle phase, rather than it being hard and wanting to avoid it. Are you actually learning to embrace those experiences of contrast?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was kind of explaining this to her in terms of like this struggle phase. And then one thing I pointed out to her, I said, it's so necessary to go through that, because once you get to the other side and all the revenue is generating, you become this big company, whatever, the work doesn't stop. Like, there is a whole another level of work to maintain where you're at, and then to grow it. So getting this struggle phase in the beginning is so critical when you're at zero. When there isn't nothing to lose. Imagine when you really have something to lose.
Yeah, it's like the good analogy is like a baby bird has to use its beak to peck out of the shell, because if the parent does it, the mother bird does it for him, it's going to die.
It's going to die, yeah.
The struggle is what fortifies our character to be the man or woman we need to be to fulfill that goal that we've set for ourselves. And of course, it'll be interesting when we do this again in 6 months and see the growth has happened. But, likely you'll look back and say, wow, if I hadn't gone through those struggles, I wouldn't have reached this level. But there's always a next level of struggle. But I think what happens, and maybe you can speak to this briefly, when you let go of resisting that struggle phase, does it become easier?
Yeah, it becomes a lot easier. Not easy in the sense that it's just knocking over, but easy in the sense that you're not struggling. You're more allowing, you're allowing things to happen based off of what's in front of you to do. Like, always looking at what's in front of me now, and being able to clear out all the noise and really hone in on the signal of the work that needs to be done right now.
Amen. I love that focal point. So, you touched on this briefly, the idea of like what prompted you to seek out a coach. You mentioned LeBron James, and LeBron invests $1 million a year in himself, not just in his skills in basketball, but in every aspect of life.
Every aspect, yep.
So was there anything else that prompted you to sign up for the coaching and embark on this journey with me?
Well, like you mentioned before, we've been, friends for almost 5, 6, 7 years on Facebook, right? Like, that's when we first met. It has to be like 7 years ago now.
I think so.
It has to be. And one of the things that, I must say, Matt, is you've been persistent. You've been persistent, and you never asked for anything. You would always give, and we've never asked for anything in return. And, I maybe it was the pandemic was the thing that really pushed me into, like, it's time to invest. And so it was your persistence, and then the next one was the fact that you gave value before you got any value in terms of dollars and cents. And then third, man, like, it's been a solid relationship. It's not transactional, it's transformational.
Yeah, wow.
In terms of our work together. Yeah,
thank you kindly. And Yeah, I think that's just very relevant to life in general. So diving more into the work that we've been achieving together here, Trey. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been speaking to this, but let's laser focus on it a little bit more, and maybe like just speak to your character development. And you've also got some revenue trickling in with the project that you're
Yes.
into
Oh
here.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Hallelujah,
Yeah.
and that'll continue to compound. But what are, in terms of the timeline, the last 6 months, how have things changed since we began our work together?
I think what changed most is my inner game. The inner game. All day long. It's like I've been trying to do the outer game without really mastering the inner game. And I think that's what I'm gaining a mastery over now. Like there's nothing that can come to me that I cannot work through. And if it is overwhelming, that's where you have a coach.
Yep, absolutely. Love that. Love that. Great point. Um, okay, so just dialing it in here a little bit. What would you say are three major benefits that you've gained from our work together?
Inner game, getting inner game, clarity to decide and making powerful decisions, and then breath, the power of your breathing. Like it seems so simple, but it's so transformational of breath work, and it's powerful concept because it doesn't, like, a lot of people go to therapy and you try to talk things out, but with breath work there's no talking. You're just being the most natural. It's amazing how it's incredible what comes out of breath work, and you're not even talking. It's just naturally rearranging, and then you get insights. And you want to write them down, and so and I think over the last few weeks that has been key. And then with the links that you sent me, especially over the last 2 weeks, have been critical.
Awesome. Awesome. Love that. And what's been your favorite part of our work together, Trey?
We laugh. I mean, we laugh. I think, the laughter part, I think you have your sense of humor, it resonates with me. And sometimes you'll say something that makes me laugh when I may be stressed, and maybe just in that laughter and like the comfortability, it's almost like a laxative to get the lesson that you're trying to teach, or the lesson that you're trying to coach with.
Right? Not a
it's a relaxative. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the main part, and I think that's like the glue that keeps. I look forward to our sessions every Tuesday. Like I look forward to that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because there's some meetings that I go to, you feel the tension around the meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you feel the tension around it, and I never feel that tension. It's always.
Oh, that's awesome, bro. Wow, appreciate that. And final question here, Trey. Would you recommend that others work with me, and why would you make that recommendation?
Totally. And the reason why is because I think moving forward over the next decade, as you see in the news, in the media, there's so much noise going on. And it's so hard to hear yourself. And Matt, specifically, I'm talking about you specifically, has helped me to hear my voice louder than all the external voices. Even when I wanted to step away, even when I felt overwhelmed, it was the way you were able to dig in to what I was presenting to you and then show it back to me and then amplified my voice higher than all the other voices that I heard externally. And I think that's a gift that you have, to be able to help people to zoom in and then zoom out, that I know have been beneficial. So anyone that works with you, that's one thing like that they can, expect, is to be able to amplify their voice above the voices of everything that's going on. And like I said, it's urgent over the next decade as we go, as they call the roaring 20s, from 2020 to 2030. Investing in a coach to help you ride because we're in the biggest shift in human history, probably, of transformation. It's the fourth industrial revolution, where things are going to be automated, things are going to be more robot centric, and in that there is a possibility for you to lose touch with your humanity. And I think having a coach like you, Matt, it's going to be like a booming business. Having a coach like you is going to help people maintain touch with their humanity. And the goal of automation is for us to be more humans. You know what I mean? And I think this is the opportunity for us to be more creative, for us to be more, in tune with, things outside of our vision. So I say all that to say that's one of the reasons why I recommend you specifically. But just the urgency of this type of investment is going to be probably one of the best investments you make, especially as we look into the next decade.
Well, bro, awesome. I really appreciate that. Super appreciate your time and sharing your insight in our journey together. And, it really is just the beginning, right? Like for
Yeah.
me, and, this is the way I work, but I'm looking for lifelong bonds here, right? The next 10, 20 years and beyond, because this creative work is too important to make it transactional. We have to focus on the transformation. We're in the age of transformation, and we've got a whole lot of field to work with. There's a lot of darkness
A
within
lot, a
ourselves,
lot.
ultimately, that we get the opportunity by working together to shine that light on and reveal the greater aspects of who we are, and of course, share that with the world. So it's just been a blessing for me to be your coach and to guide you in the process, Trey. And I have a lot of I admire you, man. I admire your growth and your courage, and it's just been an amazing journey with you. And obviously, just to document it here, may I have your permission to share this interview with others as well?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. Well, thank you kindly.